Good evening. Jalasi, bienvenue, and welcome. Thank you for being here with us today for our Fireside chat promoting equity in early childhood across Atlantic Canada. Wabanaki is a Mi'kmaq word that describes where the sun rises first, or the dawnland, one that also describes the eastern location of the work that will be highlighted on Turtle Island this evening. We're excited to have you all with us in person and virtually via our live stream. My name is Jessie Lee McIsaac, and I'm the director of the Early Childhood Collaborative Research Center and an associate professor in the Faculty of Education and the Department of Child and Youth Study. Before we begin, I'd like to start by acknowledging that Mount St. Vincent University is located in Chibuktuk, part of Mi'kma'ki, the unceded ancestral territory which remains the homeland of the Mi'kmaq Nation. This territory is covered by the covenant chain of treaties of peace and friendship signed between 1725 and 1779. These treaties are affirmed by the Supreme Court of Canada and recognize Aboriginal title. The treaties are living agreements that establish the rules for an ongoing treaty relationship between nations. As hosts of this event, we pay respect to the knowledge embedded in the lands and waters and to the elders past, present, and future. We will start and feeling very grateful to have Elder Debbie Isan with us this evening to begin our event with a blessing.
Thank you. Can I move this down?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I'm not as tall as she is. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm so honored to be here this evening, especially for the early childhood collaboration. The reason I'm saying especially blessed is because a family of 6, out of the 6 of us, 2 of my sisters have chosen to work in the field of early childhood education. One is a daycare, I better not call her a daycare worker because she does not like that. She works with children at the daycare in our community back in Northern Ontario. And another sister works with children who are going into care, and instead of doing just the regular care, they're calling it the Orange Standard, where children are being kept with families and the families are being worked with so that the children can all stay together and the family can stay together. And so it's just a blessing to work with people who love children so much and want to do the most for children, because the children are our future and the children are who we need to educate to move forward. And it's kind of serendipity that you're having this gathering this time of the year. Although we're a little bit early for the winter months, which I won't say it too loud so no one can hear, we're still in the harvesting season, but very shortly we will be going into the winter season. And tonight you're having a fireside chat. And this is the time where we bring our families together. When it's too cold outside to do anything, we bring our families together into our homes, or into our longhouses or into our teepees, and we share with them the stories. We share with them the way to do things. We share with them our legends and our myths and our stories, and we teach them. And this is the time that we gather together and to learn knowledge and to show our kids the way ahead, to show our kids with respect. So I am the one who is very honored to be here in this room full of men and women who are gathered together for the good of the children. The children are our future, and the children who we must teach and share with them the knowledge and the diversity and the equity of all people. We all need to walk together side by side so that we can support each other, no matter what nation we come from, no matter what color our skin, no matter what we do for a living. We need to all work together. So as I said, I'm the one who is blessed and honored to be here tonight. I am Anishinaabe Kwe, which is Native woman in Ojibwe. I'm originally from Batchewana First Nation by Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. I was in the military for 36 years in the Navy. That brought me here to Chibuktuk. But while I was on my basic training, I fell in love with a pair of beautiful blue eyes. 47 years later, here we are with 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren, living in Chibuktuk and loving this territory very, very much. So I will begin my prayer this evening in my language. I'll introduce myself in my spirit language, and I'll switch to English. But I would invite each and every one of you here to pray in the way that is good for you, the way that suits you the best. So if I could ask everyone to stand, please. Ani bujo nanatemakus, indasianakas, nomeanganawe anishnabekwe, Bachuana. Creator, we thank you for the beautiful sunshine that you have given us today. It helped ignite the fire in our bellies to move ahead with yet another day. And for those beautiful winds that blown today to help cleanse Mother Earth of her toxins. We ask, Creator, that you come into this room this evening and help each and every one of these men and women here open their hearts and their minds with clarity and understanding of the words and the talk that they are about to hear. I ask that you stay with them and bless them and keep them safe as they return to the Friendship Center tomorrow and then eventually back to their home communities and their loved ones. We pray, Creator, for those men and women who are sick and need your help and strength and guidance in the days ahead, and for our loved ones who are preparing themselves for their final journey to you. We ask, Creator, that you welcome them with open arms. And for those doctors, nurses, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics, and all those men and women who work so hard day in and day out, protecting our way of life here in Jabuktuk, keep them safe and free from harm. And lastly, Creator, for those veterans, those men and women who are far from home, and those men and women who work tirelessly here on Turtle Island, keep them all safe and free from harm till they return back to Turtle Island and back to the loving arms of their family and their friends. Imset Nogama, Tahomigwich Ahau. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful fireside chat this evening, and I will see you tomorrow morning at the Friendship Center when you come to take part in our haircutting ceremony and then take part in the rest of your conference tomorrow. Have a good evening. Walaliok Miigwech. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elder Debbie, for those words to begin our conversations today. We're really grateful to have you here with us. So today, our conversation at the Fireside Chat is focused on the critical aspect of promoting equity in early childhood. And as we're hosting this conversation here at Mount St. Vincent University, we're pleased to welcome our President and Vice Chancellor, Dr. Joelle Dickinson, to bring words of welcome from the university.
Thank you, Jessie, and thank you for adjusting the mic for me. Some tall people are getting used to me following them in the words. So basically what I'm here is to give a very brief advertisement for Mount St. Vincent University. This is what they get me to come up here and talk about. So Jessie Lee was kind enough to write me a few remarks. A lot of them are about her, so I'll skip over most of the yes, you're wonderful, she's amazing, deserves promotions. Okay, here we are. So first and foremost, I would very much like to thank Shirk and the Wallace and Margaret McCain Foundation, Family Foundation, that make this work possible. Mount St. Vincent is born out of providing access to education to women. And women traditionally have been also burdened with providing family care. And so I have met so many people in this community, I'm fairly new here, who have told me that their education here at Mount St. Vincent would not have been accessible had we not had the Child Study Center here on campus. And not just any child care, but early childhood education that is based on research-informed practices. And sure, I could go on forever about the Early Childhood Education Center, but how many of you toured it today? So you know what I'm talking about, right? The building is not amazing. We will do our best. That's in here too. I'm not promising that in here, Jessie Lee, no. But we are going to be making some announcements fairly soon about some very key and strategic investments into the early childhood education program. and the center as well. I do have in my notes here that the Child Study Center has been open since 1976. How many of you were born before that? Thank you, thank you. Okay. And it does provide already a model for best practices in early childhood education. It is phenomenal, and it will only get better from here. So watch for some key initiatives that are going to be coming here soon. We also are very proud to announce, due to some investments from the McCain Foundation as well, that this year we introduced the new ECE concentration that is available within the BA Child and Youth Study Program. So if any of you are looking to increase your skill base, come and join us. And the graduates of our BA Child and Youth Study Program are eligible for a Level 3 ECE classification. And we are also working with the government to get some classifications for the concentration as well, so watch for that. On the way here, and this is where I ignore the notes and just say what I want. On the way here, I was rushing from another meeting, listening to CBC, as I want to do. And has anyone heard about the Nobel Prize winner in physics? Yes. So I was like, oh, they're going to talk about it. Great. So what do? They interviewed her daughter. So they say, we're happy to have an interview with the daughter of the woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize, or Nobel Prize in Physics. I'm like, I was irritated at first. I'm like, if a man won this, would they be interviewing his son? Probably not. So then, though, I was listening very intently, and the daughter of this Nobel Prize winner is an Olympic champion. And she talked about how her mother, working hard and dedicated to a life's mission, has helped her be able to see herself achieving whatever she wanted in her future. So I was a little less irritated about them interviewing the daughter, because representation matters. And I think what we're doing here at the Mount with access to education, EDIA representation, is we are providing a vision for those who do not necessarily see themselves reflected in where they want to be. And so you as early childhood educators have that same opportunity to open young minds into knowing, not just believing, but knowing that they can achieve what they want to achieve. We gave an on-doc recently to Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard. You may have heard of her, first African Nova Scotian senator. And we gave her a fresh start here at MSVU. She was kicked out of university, and we accepted her, and so we provided her access, and look at the impact that she has gone on to have. Last year, we celebrated Eugenia Addy, who is in vision science, and she talked about a young teacher one day asking her when she was talking about science, saying, you may want to consider something a little less difficult. And so that one comment to her made her question what she could go on and achieve. So no pressure or anything, but you have a ton of influence on what we will see 15, 20, 30 years from now in terms of our leadership, in terms of our politicians, in terms of our premiers, prime ministers. And so do well and be better. And that's what conferences like this do. So thank you very much, Jessie Lee. Those were amazing remarks that you wrote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dickinson. So our conversation today, as was remarked, is a broader initiative that is supported by a connection grant funded by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, or SSHRC, and with the generous support of the Margaret M. Wallace McCain Family Foundation. And the work is also made possible through ongoing collaboration with a number of partners who are with us here today. And they've made this event possible and tomorrow's workshop as well possible. We thank each and every one of them who has helped to shape our events, and especially the dedicated team at the Early Childhood Collaborative Research Center, who you will not miss with our wonderful pink shirts today. So before we get into our main event and welcoming our storytellers, I just want to take 2 more minutes to talk about why we're here. So as we all know, the Canada-wide early learning and childcare federal, provincial, territorial agreements are transforming how early childhood programs are organized and delivered across the country. We are here because of many of you that have been involved in decades of advocacy and research evidence on the importance of children's right to high quality, inclusive, and culturally responsive early learning programs. We're also here because we all care deeply about accessible services and programs for families with young children that celebrate and welcome families for who they are. As many conversations with the early learning and childcare initiatives have focused on affordability for parents and the impact to the larger economy, we are here today and tomorrow to bring forward a child and family-focused lens to the conversation to highlight the importance of equity. And there's many ways that we can look at equity. In the spring, we held a 3-part storytelling series that highlighted examples of culturally responsive programming, anti-oppression, and inclusion and accessibility. This evening, you will have the opportunity to hear from 4 storytellers from across Atlantic Canada who, along with a moderator, will bring their own unique lenses around the topic of equity in early childhood. We invite you this evening to listen and reflect with intention, explore the connections across the stories that are shared, and seek inspiration from the storytellers to take action in your own work. We also encourage you to consider and interrogate the colonial systems that influence inequity, and the ways that we can move forward toward reconciliation through meaningful partnerships with our Indigenous communities. So now I'll invite our storytellers and the moderator to make their way up to the stage. And I'll also invite Dr. Jeannie Larson, who is our postdoctoral fellow at the ECCRC, who will introduce the format of our evening and our storytellers and moderator.
So I have to adjust the mic myself. Hi, everyone. I'm new to the stage, so bear with me, please. Thank you. Good evening to everyone. Yes. The Fireside Chat this evening will feature a moderated series of questions to our 4 storytellers, followed by a Q&A with the audience. The storytellers and moderator will introduce themselves as part of the panel, but I would like to briefly introduce them as they come up to the stage or as they've arrived. Firstly, we have our moderator. There she is, Moshella Short. Can wave. Moshella is faculty for the Afrocentric Learning Option, ACLO, of the Adult Learning Program at NSCC's Ackerley campus. Next, and this is not actually in the order that you're seating, but I'll just, if you don't mind, I'm just like, actually I can jump around. I know who you are. So next we have Nathalie Nadeau, who is the Executive Director of Caring, Helping, and Nurturing Children Every Step, or Chances Incorporated, a nonprofit charitable organization in PEI. After that, we have, See. We are also grateful to have Taitu Sepsibi as a storyteller. Taitu is a supervisor of the largest ECE center for the Care for Newcomer program at the Immigrant Services Association of Nova Scotia, or ISANS. Who else do we have? Next we have Debbie Ingram. Thank you, Debbie, while I try to find exactly what your job title is. She's the Child Development Coordinator with First Light St. John's Friendship Center. And rounding out this lovely group of individuals, we have Danielle Larry as another of our storytellers. She is the new? Yeah, you're the new, how long? Yeah. Since May, okay, so new. Indigenous Curriculum Specialist for Early Learning for the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development in New Brunswick. Thank you. It's so nice to be able to gather in person, and with that, I'm going to leave it to everyone on stage. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. What an honor to be here and to see you all and to share this time with everyone. We had a chance to chat, the 5 of us, a little bit earlier, and the excitement is building. I think when we come together like this with our different stories and our different successes and challenges, that we can't but do better and go further when we have conversations like this. And so I'm super grateful to be here. As Jeannie said, I currently get to work with NSCC in a couple of different areas. I get to work with the Afrocentric cohort of the ECE Accelerated with eCampus, and now I get to work at Akeley, working with the ALP program with our Afrocentric learning option. It's a mouthful, I know, but it's a mouthful of greatness to be in this position right now. I have a colleague who says whenever you ask an ECE to tell you about themselves, they talk about what they do. Well, that's because that's exactly who we are, right? It's what we get to do. Most of us are in this field because we feel driven to it. We feel like we were designed exactly for that. And so now I'm going to give our panel a chance to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about how equity relates to what they get to do in their current roles. And we'll start with Danielle.
Hi everybody, my name is Danielle Larry and I'm from Escanobitich First Nation. I'm the Indigenous, well, we actually looked at maybe changing the name of my position. Well, I guess it's up in the open, but I'm a learning specialist, early learning specialist who is specialized in Indigenous curriculum. So we thought maybe that way would, we don't want to put kind of like a, obviously I'm Indigenous, so we just want to make sure we don't put kind of a label on that. And yeah, I'm with the Department of Early Childhood Development, and I'm part of the development team, so I get to work with a great team of educators, like all of us. Most of us are from the field directly, and I kind of lost my train of thought. So I'm very open, and I like to be like myself, obviously. But yeah, how equity relates to our work is in New Brunswick, we're looking to create a lot of better relationships with First Nation communities. And how we're doing that, I guess, is having created a position for me to come in and help begin those talks with communities and something like that.
Thank you. Debbie, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Debbie Ingram. I'm the Child Development Coordinator for First Light Friendship Center in St. John's, Newfoundland. We run the only urban Indigenous childcare center in Newfoundland, Labrador. So that's pretty unique in itself because people tend to, when they come down, they come from Reserve or they come from Labrador, where they're coming from, there could be a culture shock when they get into the city. So it's really good that we have that there and that we have those familiar setting for the children when they come in. So the environment is very familiar to them. It's something that they would be used to that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. Diversity, inclusion, I'm very, very passionate about it. I have a family member, close family member that I grew up with with exceptionalities. So I was raised seeing the bullying, seeing the segregation. So that was firsthand to me. My daughter so I come from Mi'kmaq heritage. My daughter is Chinese, who now calls herself a Chinese Mi'kmaq Newfie. So there you go, that's who she is. But yeah, so it's really important for me to be open to everybody, every soul, every person, whatever it is that you have to offer. We need to celebrate those differences rather than segregating the differences. So I'm happy to be here to talk to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And now Taitu will tell us a little bit about what she does and how does equity revolves around that.
Hi, my name is Taitu Sabsube. I'm a newcomer from Ethiopia, and I work at ISANS, the Immigrant Services Association of Nova Scotia. I work with newcomer children and their families. Equity plays a huge role when you work with newcomer families. Families without any information or with the settlement journey. So I've been a supervisor for one of the largest ECE center at ISANS for the last 10 years. So my experience is mostly working with children and their families on their settlement journey. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. My name is Natalie Nadeau. I'm the Executive Director for Chances. We're a nonprofit organization based out of PEI. The whole goal of Chances is really creating opportunities to have wraparound services around vulnerable families. So we have about 11 early childhood center across the island. We focus around pre and after school care as well. We have about 10 centers. We have a big program, an in-home visitation program that's called Best Start. So really looking at that early intervention, early prevention, really focusing on reducing adverse risks, and really looking at equity in terms of access to support or social services or healthcare. So talking about healthcare, we have a nurse practitioner-led health clinic that's really focused on our clients. So really looking at who's the most vulnerable families that we have. And in the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years, PI has really done a tremendous shift in terms of having more having more diversity. So it's quite new in terms of looking at our services and really equipping our services to being able to meet the needs. So I think Chances is a good organization within PEI that does those services and try to have the family at the center. So it's really family focused. So although we do provide early childhood centers for kids, our main focus is trying to wrap those services around the family as well, because kids go home after they're in daycare all day. So we really need to up their capacity and make sure that they have proper support. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And on behalf of our wider community, I just want to offer our gratitude for the great work that you and your organizations are doing sorry, I thought I had a big voice. In promoting equity and we recognize the tremendous amount of work that goes into it. But we know that we've been achieving a lot of success as well. So now if you could share with us some of the successes that you and your organization have been benefiting from recently, that would be really great.
Do better this time. So one of the main things is that the province realized that there was a need for having somebody that was more specialized in First Nation communities. The conversation kept coming up a lot. So I guess one of the big successes is like realizing that there was a need for a curriculum specialist, especially with First Nation education, bringing that to the early childhood sector. Other successes we've had also that I've been able to, my personal success, I guess, because I am new with the department, my own personal successes from the past would have been when I was teaching the early childhood education program at NBCC. I also was able to offer that program in community, in my own community in Escanobidge First Nation, where I was able to kind of also give, I guess, our First Nation look at it and how we'd be able to maybe change that and offer that in community and make it more appropriate for our own people. So that's where a lot of, I believe, my personal successes come from, because I feel like the importance of having, well, I think we all know that working with equity, right? The importance of having educators that the children can look up to. I had a visit this morning, and how we were talking about before we would look in as a person of color or even a First Nation person, when you're going to school, there's not an educator really that sticks out that you might really feel more comfortable with. So I feel like by offering this program and offering it to our people, like internally, like I know like the big difference that's going to have on our own children in our communities, right? And also being an Indigenous person and being able to teach to a wide variety of students, especially when you think about the international community. I thought that was very interesting also, because I was able to give an insight on First Nation people and culture, which you wouldn't get with, I guess, somebody who is non-Indigenous. Other things that we have going on in our department, we have, I've also given an Indigenous perspective to some of the work that we're doing when it comes to pedagogical leadership. We thrive ourselves on that, and those working on it actually are going to Nashville in the next couple of weeks, so that we will be going they will be on the international stage and putting that work forward that we're doing here in New Brunswick. Or in New Brunswick. I think that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Debbie, do you want to follow?
Sorry. Like I mentioned, we are the only urban Indigenous childcare center in Newfoundland Labrador. So that in itself has been a very successful getting that off the ground the last 7 years, where not only is it the Indigenous community benefiting from it, but the non-Indigenous community, that things are natural. It's not like we say, this is Indigenous and that's non-Indigenous. Like in our childcare center, everything is the same as a red block sitting there is the same as feather or is the same as a drum. Like everything's the same. So it's very inclusive that way. So that in itself is successful. But I just want to touch on more of our inclusion that has been successful for us. So I'm sure all the different jurisdictions do it a little bit different. In our program, we have children that require extra supports due to exceptionalities, and the exceptionalities can be for a wide range of things. And we also have teachers who require different resources that are required in order for them to equate to equity, basically, in the environment. So we have one of our teachers who is deaf. So I just want to talk about the pandemic around that a little bit. So during the pandemic, it was great. Everybody was given face masks, whatever you needed, shields, gloves, whatever was needed. Well, all of a sudden, we were put in a position then where we have a staff who is deaf, who doesn't do sign language, who relies on lip reading and hearing as a combination. So what we did in this case is got masks with the clear, you know, everybody's seen them with the clear, so we started to do that. So we just improvised a little bit to ensure that equity is for all, because you can have all the masks in the world you want with equality, but if they're not serving the purpose and able to help that teacher, then what does it mean really? So that was really successful. We had to think on our toes, which everybody has had to do during the pandemic. With regards to the children, we had one child who started with us in the baby room. We quickly realized that he was going to require supports around speech. So once he got into the toddler age, the family was amazing, very supportive, wanted to work with us, wanted the best for their child, obviously. Pretty severe, the needs there were pretty severe. That escalated by the time he was 3 years old, escalating to quite a great deal of behaviors. And what was happening is the behaviors got extreme because of the speech. He wasn't able to communicate what he wanted. With the inclusion support in place, the inclusion support was able to slow down the words, slow down what he wanted. What did he want? He was to a point where he didn't even want to go in circle time anymore. And he'd say, I need to go get my water bottle, or I need to go to the washroom, I need to do this, I need to do that. Once that inclusion support was in place, and the kids started to see how different the teacher would talk with the children, or with that child and the children in general, everybody else started role modeling, because the kids are just going to do whatever you're doing. So rather than running away, they would listen and slow down their words until the point now, he's 4 now, and he's still in our childcare center. He is in circle time, he's participating, we have programs done around him that none of the other kids are none the wiser of. Like if he's working on S-sound with a speech therapist, we might be talking about snakes in circles, say for an example. So nobody's none the wiser, but it's very, very successful when you have those supports in place. So that's just one example, or I guess 2, including the teacher examples of what has worked with us. Thank you.
I love that. I love that you included that. When we talk about equity and inclusion, that it's not just about the children, it's also making sure that our staff and families feel included as well. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, Taitu, any success that sticks out for you? And you can do 2 as well if you want.
So, talking about success for us for working with newcomer family, we are focusing on trauma-informed approach, understanding children and families. They come from different background, and also most of our family, they don't speak English, or English is not their first language, so they are learning language and they are learning the new system. And for the children, it is their first experience to be in early childhood education programs, so we have to focus and support children and also support parents to understand the program, and also making referring them to different programs internally and externally to support them filling out forms, to support them that, there are other programs, giving them informations. And also, we are working with internally, we have a family support program, crisis intervention program at ISAN, so connecting them when the needs comes internally, and also referring children to early intervention program with parents' permission. It takes a lot of communication. We need interpreter most of the time, and I can say that we are lucky at ISANS. We have staff from different cultural backgrounds who speak different languages, so we use our own staff most of the time, and if not, we use interpreters to interpret for them. But the process is really long, as you can understand, going through, for example, early intervention. There is one form that you fill out, but it doesn't end there. Once the children are referred, there are so many forms for parents to follow up and for educators to fill different forms. So most of the time we end up filling both forms for the parents and for the children. We are sitting down with parents and asking them, does she do that at home? Does he do that at home? Okay, yes or no. Because giving them forms, they take it home, they don't understand to fill it out, or they don't even see the necessity. Why are you asking me? Like, I'm bringing my child, my child, you fill it out. Like, why do I have to answer this question? So explaining it to them and making those connections and supporting them in that process, I can say that that's the real success we are seeing for parents. And also making connection with different programs, inviting early interventionists to our program so they can talk to us about what their program. Also, we can explain to them about our clients' needs and what's missing. And so they can understand when we refer children, there might be a language problem or they don't understand the program. So that was a huge success for us as well.
Thank you so much. Now, Natalie, is there any success that you and your organization have achieved recently that you want to share with us?
Yeah. So I think for Chances, I was pondering that question for a few weeks. And I think the best example is to kind of give you a lived experience from one of our families. So we had a 17-year-old teen mom that was pregnant. And she was terrified to tell their parents, and parents did not react well. And she was a newcomer family as well. So really, she was basically kicked out of her family, no place to stay, pregnant, wanted to keep the baby. So what Chances does is really when I said like wraparound services, so introducing her to different services that we have. So she was immediately connected with our Best Start program. So we followed her before she had the baby. So usually it's after they give birth that we come in connection. But because of the vulnerability of that particular family or teen, we were able to connect with her in home right away. And we have a community navigator that was able to find an apartment for her, work with different agency in the community to have all that she needed to prepare for the baby. She was connected with our nurse practitioner as well, so you can imagine, I don't know how the health system is in Nova Scotia, but in PI, we're about 36,000 on the wait list. So having prompt access to healthcare is really, it's really a privilege, to be quite honest. So having that as a main key item, so the nurse practitioner followed her really closely. And she was involved in our drop-and-play groups. So our drop-and-play groups are really focused on, it's not just about bringing kids so the kids can interact with them. And we're really strategic on how we set up the educational content material for them for educational purposes. But it's really about the families to connect. So a lot of them is able to make connection, and that social support is really important. So she was able to make some friends and have that kind of support net that she needed. As well as we were able, through our foundation and through our program, support her for daycare for the lifelong 5 years that kids are in daycare, and we support it for after school as well. And when we talk with this individual now, which she's an ECE, which we're super proud of, it really puts back in perspective around, it's really important how the connection between all of the programs. So for us, it's easier, but still there's gaps and barrier because we're one agency. But looking at different, when a newcomer or someone that's very vulnerable, trying to navigate the system is a nightmare. There's all kinds of challenges. So our organization is really about like sitting down and filling out forms with them, just so that they can get income support or all these benefits that they can gather. So I think like we're super proud. I'm super proud of our organization. So we've been able to have support from provincial government for a whole bunch of our different program, and I do think in PI the way our ECE structure is built is very positive in terms of having quality services for our kids and having them like really emerge in diversity and having those best practices. So.
Yeah. Wow, that's a fantastic example of when it works. And the other thing I really noticed is from each of your stories is how you achieve those successes by collaborating with other organizations in community. And before, when we've had conversations, it's beautiful to celebrate all the wins, but we know that you don't get to those successes without obstacles in the way. So now, if you could share with us not only some challenges that you face in creating a space that's equitable for all the people that share, but how did you overcome it? Or what are you doing currently to overcome that? Can we start with you, Debbie?
Sure. So I'm just going to talk about, I need this, don't I? Sorry, guys. I'm just going to talk about inclusion again. I might as well keep going with that. So right now, and I know every jurisdiction again is different, in Newfoundland and Labrador, our inclusion program right now is not working for us. I'm just going to put it out there. We have, right now what happens is a child comes into your, and I'm sure this is going to be a very familiar story to everybody in this room in one form or another. Obviously, I'm talking from our perspective of what we're dealing with. A child comes into our child care center now. They may need supports. They may not need supports. We have families out there now that are in the middle of a child care crisis. I think that's going on pretty much in every jurisdiction right now. What's happening out there in the community, because I am a part of the community as well as the ECE world, is you hear parents talking and they're saying, don't tell any daycares that your child has an exceptionality. Don't, like, it's almost like they're giving a resume for their child right now because they're scared, because they're scared that you're not going to take their child if there is inclusion required. So what's happening is they're coming into the child care center. Sometimes they're very open about it, sometimes they're not. You have the child in your care, could be for a month, could be 2 months, whatever. You see that there are exceptionalities that are needed, along with Down syndrome, autism, physical disability, what have you. You got to consider there's also a lot of other things going on with our mental health right now, and I think we need to get into the times of where we are today. Things like child abuse is going on, addiction abuse, alcoholism. There's all kinds of things going on within the home that, again, those parents aren't going to say anything to us because they may be victims themselves, and that could be a safe haven for the child when they come to childcare during the day. So these children are now here that may have behaviors, or they're withdrawing, or they're having having accidents or whatnot. Like, there's all kinds of things around that mental health, that there is no diagnosis. And when you go to apply for inclusion supports, the first thing they ask you, have they seen a doctor? Is there any diagnosis? And I just feel that's a really big challenge right now because we're not up to where we should be. By the time we apply for these inclusion supports, like we have families that come down from Labrador, like I said earlier, that are in culture shock. That child in itself is going to need one-on-one attention. Could be for a couple months before they even realize where they are. We know this information already, but in order to get these inclusion supports in place in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have to apply for it. So you're 1 month in now and realize you have a child that needs extra supports because X, Y, Z, for multitude of reasons why they may need these supports. Then you have to provide, was their diagnosis? No. Now you have to get observations. Okay, so now you're a month in. You apply for it. They have 30 days to come out, do an observation. That could be at the tail end of the 30 days. Then they come into the center and they say, okay, you've been approved. So now we may be into 3-4 months in, and now we have the room upside down because of whatever. And then as an administrator, you have to make the decision. If you have 15 children in a classroom, you have 14 children at one teacher, and you have one teacher accommodating that one child because they obviously need it for whatever the reason is. It could be sitting in the corner and talking to them for half an hour, or it could be making sure they don't throw a chair at somebody. You know what I mean? There's all different reasons. But then as an administrator, you have to make that decision to say, is this a safe environment for all of these children? So I feel that the system, our inclusion system period, is just not working right now. The fact that we have to apply for it in this day and age when we know these children are here. We know every single class, every single daycare, I don't know obviously, but I'm assuming that every single daycare has very similar stories, that we know we need the supports in place. We know that already, and I just feel that this is something that we can do better. I just feel we can come up with a better system to make sure that we are providing those equity environment for every single child. And we keep saying out there, we're inclusive, we're equity, we're equality, diversity, but we're not. We don't have the supports in place. So until we have those supports in place, it's really hard to accomplish what every one of us up here, and I'm sure every one of you down there, want at the end of the day. And I mean, every parent out there is desperate for childcare right now as it is. You add in the fact that they have a child that requires extra supports in place. We need to have those resources up front. We need to be able to say, okay, it's not working. What can we do? How can we help these children? Because what happens often is parents will get frustrated because the teachers at the end of the day are going through a list of things that happen during the day, and the parents are getting scared and hauling their kids out. Or, I mean, all different things are going on. They're hearing from other parents, or they're coming in, other children's parents are coming in and talking about that child. There's just a whole lot of backfill that goes with that that's unnecessary if we could have those supports up front and those resources up front in order to accommodate these needs. So I'm very passionate about it, and I do feel that we can get there and we can get better, and we can have all these inclusive environments, the diversity that we want, but we need to get the resources in place from the get-go and not after the fact. That's where I am with that. Thank you.
And I think you're absolutely right that all centers are dealing with similar situations and wishing for that same thing, that the resources could come quicker, or like you say, be there up front. Because we all know that the children coming into our care are going to come in with a variety of needs, and so it's a known thing that it's going to happen. So thank you so much. Kaitu?
I think I'll agree with Debbie. Most of the challenges are similar. But for newcomer families, it's also having the information is a challenge. And then after we give them the information, the wait list is going to be another challenge. So imagine your child, you are a newcomer, you are on a settlement journey, supporting. I think we can we share everything, yeah. So I'll get back to it, I think. Yeah, so the challenge is understanding the system, but after we explain everything and we refer a child, for example, and they have to be on a wait list. I think everything is off. Can you hear me?
Maybe they're all going down at the same time.
Okay. I'll try. Sorry, this is one of the challenges as well. Resources, yeah. So wait list is most of the big challenge we see, and also finding a family doctor for newcomer families. If families do not have their own family doctor, to follow up with their children. That's going to be a difficult path for them because seeing different doctors at different time, there is not going to be a follow-up from one doctor to another doctor. Again, different paths for parents are a very huge challenge because we want them to refer them and we want them to get support before they start school while they are in early childhood education center because the system is going to break and start again because we do all the observation, the connection, and they are on a wait list and they go to school and then it's going to start from zero. And for those parents, understanding the system is difficult, so it's going to be added challenge for them, again, to start like new. So again, when we have children, for us, children start in our ECE center. That's their first experience. There is language barrier. It takes time for us to understand them and for them to understand us. So most of the behaviors we see could be with just understanding their teacher. Maybe they want to go to the washroom, maybe they are saying something and the teachers are not understanding them. So we see lots of behaviors at the beginning until children settle down in the system. So that's when we start the real observation and if there is a need that we have to refer. So there is a time process. It might be 1 month for one child, it can be 2 months for another child to settle in the new center. And just to draw a little picture for you, most children come from their own community and they don't even see people who look different from them. So the parents will bring them and leave them in the care of new faces, new people who cannot understand them and they cannot understand what we are saying. And those children left so many things behind. They don't understand what's going on. And for the parents, they left their life behind them as well. But parents mostly know why they are here. They make that choices, or they know they are forced to leave, and this is a choice, safe place they find. But for children to understand that, it's completely different. As a parent of newcomers, for parents, I don't think they take the time to explain to their children, this is your new home. They are with them, so they are safe. But children also lost lots of things. They lost their home. They may leave family member behind. So there are lots of challenges that we are facing when we start to care for them. So most of the behaviors come from different things. Sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it's missing home, sometimes there is a need for special support. So the time takes longer to find out what's going on with the children, and then to do the observation, to do the referral, and then there is a wait list. It can take 2 months, it can take a year. So those are the huge challenges we see with parents. Again, without a family doctor to follow up with, or the system doesn't connect either from early childhood to school. Parents will have to find their own ways. And they are finding their own ways to live in a new country, to find a new home, to find a new job, to find a new connection. So this is added challenge for them, and the same thing for us. So we always struggle to get them referred, to get them that connection before they leave our service, because the ratio is different. It is, once they go to school, it's 1 to 25 or 1 to 24 children. So that individual one-to-one support is not going to be there. So that's most of the challenge we see in our system.
Yeah. The need is immediate, but the wait is long, right? It's constant. Yeah.
Okay, so some of the challenges that we face is, I guess, historically, the relationship between First Nation communities and government has not always been good. Also, I guess, challenges, especially for me, is also being a Mi'kmaq woman. It's also part of my culture, and, some of the wants that the First Nation communities have is also, I understand where those wants come. So I guess working it's kind of like, where do we start with these conversations that need to be had, right? Obviously, we all need to sit in spaces where we might feel uncomfortable, especially talking about truth and reconciliation. Also, when we're talking about First Nation communities, diversity and inclusion, all these things are really big, and being multicultural. And, I also something that comes to mind, the challenge is like, we got to make sure that we are also like, acknowledging the true history of the land that we are on. And for some of us, it's a lot easier than others. So I guess that would be some of my challenge, especially being passionate about my own culture and my people. At times I might run into certain barriers. So I guess that's what we got to do. And I guess as ECEs, we're very resourceful when it comes to that. So it's, I guess, trying to navigate some of those barriers, but at the same time, keeping in mind why it is we are, what it is we're doing, right? And who we're doing it for. And I guess we're doing it for the children in hopes that they will build a better world. So that's kind of where my big challenge is like, where do we start, and how do we start these conversations in order for all of us, all the children, to be better, right?
So for chances, so I think one of the biggest challenges that I've seen in the last year, it's been kind of that reflection of what we've been doing for so long and questioning what we've been doing, because we're all well-intended, but sometimes when your families that you serve are changing in terms of diversity, you're not necessarily adapting your services, or you're adapting your services with well-intention, but not actually kind of strategically or thinking about that cultural aspect. So for one example, so I had a particular center, or early years center, that most of the kids would bring their lunch at lunchtime, and we provide all the lunch. So it's part of the requirement to be designated in PI. So it's with the food costs and everything. So that came up to like, why is everyone bringing their lunch? Because people don't eat what we eat, right? So they don't eat meat and potatoes and things like that. So most of that particular were East Indian, so most of them were vegetarian and things like that, not used to our food. So it's little things like that that make you question, okay, like we need to look back at how we do things. And one of the big barrier is, again, we're well-attended, we want to be culturally safe and really diverse and really promote equity, but we need to go back and say, are staff well-equipped to do this? Are staff educated and knowledgeable? Are we allowing in our centers to have that freedom of discussion as well, right? It's one thing about having those discussions, but actually learning and not being afraid of asking questions and learning and having that opportunity, right? So like there's little things that we can do to have cultural committees and things like that, but it's really about questioning what you're doing and empowering staff and allowing staff to have those dialogue about diversity and equity and what that means, right? So, and there's tons of example, and I think like one of the things that, because I've only been with the organization a year and 4 months, and my nurse practitioner, her main population is 90% newcomers, and she didn't have one translator. So I'm like, how do you do your job? How do you communicate with people, right? So like getting the right equipment, getting people equipped to actually communicate, like that's basic. But if you're not actually asking the question or questioning what people are doing and looking back, okay, how can I do things different and improve things in a more cultural or equity based. So I think this is how we need to change and learn. And it comes easily for some people, but it doesn't come easily for others, right? So as an administrator, I need to make tough decisions to really push that mentality and that mandate, right? So if they're not aligned with that vision and it is changing, so you need to allow that opportunity to grow and provide the proper technology and services for staff as well, because staff are diverse. Like we're seeing, like I have about 40% of my staff that are newcomers as well, right? So that adds on a different diversity within that group, right? Tons of opportunities, but you need to be able to support them and equip them correctly, right?
Thank you. Wow. That was a beautiful way to wrap up that part of it. I think the reflection piece is so key for all of this work. We got to be checking in. It's not just about checking boxes, but it's checking on the work we're doing. Is it serving the people we hope to serve? Thank you all so much for sharing. And I think it's incredible when we can share our experiences, not just the things that are not working well, but the things that are. Because sometimes, based on our experiences and where we are, who we're serving, who is doing the serving, we don't always think about the obvious. So this sharing just brings that all together so nicely. Thank you so much. Yeah, and so the last bit, and if we could think about one thing, if you could give me one sentence that sums up, and I'll read it just so we're getting it. Great, yeah, one sentence. What you think is needed to continue the equity work in early childhood. Yeah, I know there is a lot needed, but it's something that you think is key towards this work. Because I said one sentence and I've put restrictions on this now, if something's popping up for you, you can grab your mic and go.
I'm just going to say that just to wrap it all together, we're all in this. There are people in this room right now from Newfoundland Labrador who take care of our inclusion at the Department of Education, so they're probably looking at me funny right now. We're all in this together. They want the best. We want the best. The parents want the best. We want to make sure that we have all the resources in place that we need in order to have this inclusive diversity, equity, equality, all of the above programming in place for these children. We need to figure it out. I don't know what it is we can do, but we just need to figure out something that we can all collaborate together and come up with a system that works. Because it's not working right now for what we need. I can just say for what we need right now, it's not working. So I would just like to see us to come up with something where we can all work together to come up with something that is collaborative.
Collaboration.
I would just say, echo that. I've lived in the Northwest Territory 15 years, and I've worked really closely with Indigenous population, and they would always say that one phrase, is nothing about us without us. So, I mean, you need to have the right people. If you're talking about diversity, can't be all white people making decisions. You need to have that diversity at the table to make those decisions. And it comes from government or like a small NGO or one center. You need to have that collaboration and partnership in whatever decision you're making. So, yeah, that's my one phrase.
I love it. Collaboration and diversity in the decision makers, right?
I guess my thought is we need more truth, whether it be the truth about the land, truth about the people, the culture, not just First Nation truth, I guess truth about like the families and the children that we work about, right? Like everybody's got their own stories. We know the importance of relationship and how important it is to know the truth, right, of families, and in order to make sure they're getting the proper services that they might need. So I believe that knowing the truth on whatever spectrum you might be, of whatever truth you're looking for, I think that's, if we follow the truth with good heart, like hopefully we will get to what we're all hoping for, right? Yeah.
I love that.
I think valuing diversity and equity in early years and investing in early childhood in the early years would be, one of the things that I think that our government needs to focus on, because that's the formative years, and that's where we see equity is lacking, and diversity should be valued from the beginning, and educating children and valuing them as well. Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone.
A couple more. Oh, yes, we need to distribute some, or we just walk around. Oh, yeah, you guys, yeah. It's okay. One of us can be a runner.
I'll run.
Okay, I can run. I need some exercise. So first, I just want to say thank you to Danielle, Debbie, Taitu, Nathalie and Moshella. It's just, I was really moved just listening to all these stories, and I think what really stuck with me was when you said, Moshella, it's not just about checking boxes, it's checking in, and the hard work of reflecting. And that's kind of what we asked our wonderful speakers to do today, was really, we gave them some questions and we said, please reflect, reflect, reflect. It's not our story to tell, it's not our story to prompt. I'm so grateful to have heard like some really honest and thoughtful stories. So thank you again. I'm gonna clap again. I hope everybody else does too. And I think now we have 20 minutes for Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, just raise your hand. If it's just for one of the speakers, all of the speakers, maybe even a more general question, now's the opportunity to do so. So I don't know. If you have a question, raise your hand. Anybody? Or a comment or a story? I don't know. It's a big ask. Are we done? Okay.
Let's wait the awkward moment.
Yeah, we'll have an awkward moment.
I'll wait you out.
But also, if you don't really have a direct question, like if you have a story or thinking about the questions that they all answered, and maybe you have something that you might want to share, it's a good, as you can see, it's a very friendly, good space. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, this is a very nice question, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on how, equity in the workforce is connected to equity when it comes to children and families, and how those two things relate to each other.
Adults lead by example. So I feel that by having equity in your workforce, and especially children seeing that, you're giving them kind of a look of what you want them to kind of create in their future. So I believe we always say we lead by example. Well, that's where you could start, right, with your staff. How do we do that in a respectful way is up for us to see what works depending on where you are, I guess, depending on the community you might have. But I believe like lead by example. If you want our children to be open to diversity and have open minds, well, let's show that we are also open to that with our staff, right? And I feel like if the more diversity you bring in, the more everybody is learning, the children and the adults, right, from each other. So that's what I feel like. If we're looking at that, let's lead by example and do it so in order for the children to create that.
Can I add to that a little bit? I think that is really key. I get to be part of this discussion group, Confronting Racism discussion group, and quite a few of the adults in that group, they came to recognize the work they had to do because of their children. So I think it's a flip side of it, like the work we do within our classrooms can spill out into families and communities as well. So we need to do that work on both sides, and I think it feeds each other as well.
I'll just add to it as well. So the way I look at that is connecting both of it is really communicating with your families. So you're probably all familiar with the baseball, maybe, where there's like 3 boxes and, okay, everybody knows what I'm talking about there. So if we bring it down to basics, so like say you have a child that is smaller and needs a step stool to get up to the sink. Say you have a teacher who is deaf and needs a mask that you can see through. But we need to talk to the family. So like the child that I said that is working with a speech therapist right now, talking to the parents, seeing what they do at home. So like they have an iPad at home that has all the picture boards on it and whatnot. And then maybe we do have an iPad that they have access to, but if we don't, let's look outside the box and say, okay, you're doing that at home. How about if we're at school and we do picture board instead of that? We don't have iPad. We do in our case, but I'm just saying improvise it. So really working with what do they do at home just to tie it together with what we do it here, or vice versa. There might be something we're doing at daycare that the parents might not have thought about that they can do out in the community. So communication, I guess.
I'll come over. All the way to the back. This is great. I feel like I need like a song. Here she goes. Thanks for making me run. It's great. All the way back, all the way back. Here I go.
My question is just, I wonder if the panelists or the guests have any thoughts on what education programs for students who are learning to become early childhood educators, what are some of the considerations you would hope to see in those programs that you could speak to? Thank you.
So the question was around support for programs that train early childhood educators. Michelle, you might have some too.
No, go.
Okay. Yeah, I think it starts when the educator is being born, like to be an ECE. I think those conversation, I don't know if there is an equity or diversity or inclusion course that is mandatory, like things like that really makes question the individual. So I think like one of the, I've spoken about is one thing's about having blinders, but it's another thing about deconstructing that ingrained racism and discrimination that you didn't really think of, or that white privilege that you own in terms of white people, and recognizing that, right? So I think in those type of scenario, it's really important for the educator to question and to be open to those diversity. And also allowing them to understand different perspective and different ways of doing and different things to celebrate, right? So like for an example, all of our center, we always, for the last 30 years, celebrated Christmas, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Easter, all the Christian type celebration. Why is that, right? Most of our kids are not Christian, right? So like it's really looking at how do you celebrate people that are in your centers, and it starts when your educator are studying for this type of work. And I think it's super important. I'm not sure if this is even a course that's in your manual or something, but if it's not, definitely should be. You know.
If I can add to that a little bit too, in the same light, I think, and probably more now than ever, I think educators, while they're training, need to fully understand what it takes to do this work. And they need to understand the impact of their interaction with the children and how that goes way beyond the classroom and into our families, homes, and into community at large. I think we need to start there. And I think when people understand this role they're doing and how important it is to shaping, and I like to say, and I've been saying it forever, that we're not just helping children to create a foundation for learning, but we're helping them to create a foundation for life. And when educators understand that, then they're more mindful about who they are when they're sharing space with these children and then the work is more authentic. Like our students are gonna remember us. How do we want them to remember us? You're gonna have an impact on them. What impact do you want that to be? Yeah.
I just want to add that I think there should be some kind of education about trauma-informed approach and understanding newcomer families and newcomer children, because it's not only at ISANS or on the settlement agencies that newcomer children are in daycares, they are in every daycare. So understanding them and understanding their families is very important because most families are educated in their own country, most families have their own backgrounds, they are not ignorant, they are not uneducated. They don't understand the system, they don't understand the language maybe. So we've been invited to college before to talk about trauma-informed approach, and I think instilling curiosity to know children who are coming from different cultural backgrounds is very important, and to know that there will be challenges and they have to be ready to be creative and connect with those children and support them from their early years. So I think from our time with the colleges before to talk about trauma-informed approach, I can see that there is lots of curiosity and there is lots of question. So I think adding stories, personal stories, children have their own stories. we see so many things in the center. So talking about stories without children's name, there was so many questions from the students that's, how did you do that? What do you do when it happens? So they really need that foundation, understanding children who do not speak the language we are speaking, not just English, but I speak two different languages. But if children don't understand me, what do I do? How do I support them? How do we support families who do not speak English, who do not understand the system? I think as educators, we have to be ready to support family and children in the system.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, back corner over here. Thank you so much for everyone for their comments. I just kind of wanted to add, to build on everything the wonderful comments everyone's making, but I just thought it might be worth also holding some space for caring for the educators too, right? Because I think we ask educators to do a lot and to care a lot, and we put a lot on our educators, and we often don't have the supports and the inclusion for the educators. And I love the story about the mask and so that it was more accessible for that particular person. But I think particularly in, post-secondary spaces and government spaces that we have a responsibility to really make sure we are supporting our educators to do this work, because this is hard work, and they deserve to be cared about and be cared for as well. And I'm sure you would all agree, but I just kind of wanted to specifically say, I don't think we can ask educators to care well for others if we're not caring about and for them.
I think there's agreement with that. Thank you, Brooke. I think we have time for one final question. If there's a burning question or comment that someone would like to add to the conversation. Any final remarks from our panel?
I just want to add to what you said. Taking care of educators and self-care is really important, because there are so many things that we hear and we face in our day-to-day work lives. So there is vicarious trauma. So self-care is really important, and taking care of early childhood educators is very important. So thank you for bringing that up here.
Also, I guess when we're talking about the educators, one thing that comes to mind for me is thinking about every center or organization is always kind of thinking about the culture that you want to create in your group. It's kind of like a new concept that I've learned, but I realize that it works for a lot of things in life. So I think as leaders or as directors, you need to be clear with your staff about, what kind of culture you want, what is it, and bring that up a lot of times. So that way you can kind of gauge and see where it is you might need a little extra help. And also look at your communities, what you have around available to you, and these connections and relationships. There's so much learning available with just those available in community. So if you want to be diverse, for example, reach out to your parents and make those relationships with the parents, even the community members, to come in, because it will bring so much learning to the staff and the children too, right? So just think about the culture that you want, and make sure that's visible and out there, and make sure everybody's all on the same page about that culture they want to create, so we're all working towards a same goal. Because one thing I realized is if you don't set that culture, the culture will make itself. Right? I know when I learned this, I was like, oh, but yeah, so just make sure be set on the culture you want to create, so everybody has that shared vision of how we're going to move the work forward.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being with us here this evening, and a special thank you to our wonderful storytellers and our moderator, Michelle. Thank you all so much. I think we're leaving tonight with your stories in our hearts and our minds as we continue to find ways to move forward to promote equity in our work in early childhood. So please join me in one more thank you to everyone.
Special thank you. Also, sorry, there we go. A special thanks to those that took part in the many planning meetings to make this happen. This work really is the work of many, and we are all so grateful to all be here together in person. Isn't that great? And a special thanks to the ECCR team, if you want to stand up, particularly Milena, Nahal, and Janice. If you want to stand up, do, so people know who you are. Again, could not have been done without them. So if you require a professional development certificate, please see us at the desk at the front. Thank you again for attending, and have a wonderful evening.
We'll see many of you tomorrow
We'll see
morning.
many of you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll bring it.